Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation. My article is about media freedom in Turkey. There was a time when journalists in Turkey could report the news freely, not knowing in the coming years they would be silent. That they would lose their freedom while some would be detained. Others were forcibly exiled. What happened to journalists in Turkey during the Justice and Development Party, AKP? On December 17, 2013, citizens tuned into their televisions to watch the morning news. They were all, no matter what channel they were watching, greeted by the same headline. An enormous corruption operation to the sons of four ministers and some businessmen in the government circle. They have been detained. The accusations included money laundering, bribery, and corruption. 8 days later, on Christmas Day, the son of Turkish leader Recep Tayyip Erdogan was called to the police headquarters to testify as a suspect. He ignored the call. It was a landmark for Turkish media. In the aftermath of the operation, Erdogan began threatening media companies in his live broadcast speeches. Any reporter who asked about the corruption in the Prime Minister's press conferences was immediately silent due to the pressure from the PM's office. Knowing he could not handle every journalist one by one, Erdogan cut all opposing news media loose. Events like this, along with countless others during Erdogan's control of the country, have made Turkey one of the worst countries in the world to be a journalist. Reporters Without Borders ranks it 154 out of 180, behind countries like Russia and Iraq. Another of Erdogan's attack on the media took place in 2016, when a host of news outlets were shut down and almost 300 reporters were jailed simply for criticizing the government. Some of those jailed journalists died of cancer in prison. Those who were lucky, including myself, could flee Turkey and still write and broadcast news from countries abroad. Nokta magazine was one of the outlets on Erdogan's blacklist. Former Nokta editor-in-chief Cevher Güven fled to Germany. In an interview, he shared about times when he was still living under the regime. Güven says, "Firstly, economic pressure started, and then publications were blocked many times with confiscation decisions." He says, "However, because we did not change our line despite the obstacles, we were detained and arrested, together with my assistant Murat Çapan, on the morning of November 1st, 2015 elections." The government frequently targeted the magazine to close down in 2015. The situation got intense after an issue was released with a cover featuring President Erdogan taking a selfie in front of murdered soldiers' coffins. Turkey has made it so the core responsibilities of journalists, writing the truth, reporting on politics, are considered criminal activities or even terrorism. Arrested journalists were subjected to psychological violence after being detained. Güven says, "When we were arrested, I was taken to prison in a police vehicle playing the Erdogan anthem. Thus, the message was given that it was Erdogan who actually arrested me, not the judges." We were kept in a solidarity cell. Even meeting with my assistant Murat Çapan was prevented. Isolation was harnessed as a form of punishment. About 6 months later, I was released from prison. An arrest warrant was reissued against me. I had to go on a refugee boat, ride with my family, and to move to Greece. Güven's passport was cancelled, and the police were looking for him across the country. He continues, my journalist wife was also dismissed because she was on the blacklist. Police broke into my house and searched for me. I had to leave Turkey. A few months after arriving in Greece from Turkey, I was sentenced to 25 years of jail time. I would spend my life in jail held in Turkey if I were there. Turan Görür Yılmaz, a former reporter and anchor for Bugün TV in England, was one of the victims of this ongoing persecution of independent reporters. The media channel he worked on was shut down during a live broadcast, being watched by millions. Görür Yılmaz says hundreds of police officers raided Kozaypek Media Group in 2015. I still remember it like it was yesterday. My co-workers formed a barrier at the entrance door of the building. He continues, nobody wanted the police to enter the building, while some were yelling that this was unconstitutional. Others watched the raid helplessly and in tears. I was trying to reflect everything to Turkey, despite the tear gas sprayed in my face. Our door was broken, and then our building was evacuated. We were kicked out. Some parliamentarians from the main opposition party rushed to support the journalist. Görür Yılmaz adds, the MPs were also assaulted alongside media workers. I continued the broadcast until our live cable was cut by the police. Görür Yılmaz points out that the press is free and freedom of journalism cannot be prevented clause was violated before the eyes of Turkey. And of course, we were left jobless. In recent years, being jobless in Turkey is a journalist's destiny. The Turkish government doesn't allow any amount of freedom of expression. The authorities sued many journalists who were criticizing Erdogan on social media. Some reporters chose obedience to survive, while many others chose to be the public's voice despite the threat of violence, detention, and exile. Sevgi Akarçeşme, former editor-in-chief of Today's Zaman, lives in the US after being exposed to the Erdogan regime's threat. Today's Zaman was accused of supporting terrorism, and the government seized the entire media group on March 4, 2016, Akarçeşme says. Clearly, these were fabricated charges. She says, I was sentenced to a suspended prison term in 2015. After then, PM Ahmet Davutoğlu sued me over comments someone else left under my tweet about him. President Erdogan also sued me over allegedly insulting him because I wrote about corruption implicating him and his family. There were only two options for Akarçeşme: stay in Turkey, get arrested for an unknown amount of time and risk being tortured, or flee Turkey and keep reporting the truth from abroad. Akarçeşme added, a court decision in 2016 seized all my assets in Turkey. The suppression got worse after 2016 coup attempt in Turkey by a faction of the Turkish armed forces. The failed coup only allowed Erdogan's influence to grow and gave him the ability to brand the journalists he could not put in his pocket as terrorists. Gör Yılmaz says, we can say that the AKP government aims to control all media. If the media was free in Turkey, the public could have been informed on corruption, illegalities, and false politics. It continues. Today, there is barely any media group that can freely and independently broadcast in Turkey. The newspapers have become the government's and Tayyip Erdogan's press releases. Leaving the country with the hopes of reporting from across the border doesn't even guarantee safety, as Güven learned. Güven says, as long as I lived in Greece, the Turkish government made an effort to learn my home address. Turkey's ambassador to Athens has officially filed an extradition claim for my family and me. He adds, my mother and father were detained, and my address in Greece was asked. For this reason, he and his family had to move to Germany. They were constantly exposed to threats and insults on the internet, but this did not prevent them from reporting. He and his colleagues established some media channels in Exile. They kept publishing news on YouTube and their websites. This was not an ending, but a new start. They have not obeyed the Erdogan regime because the first obligation of journalists is to tell the truth. Their job is reporting, revealing the facts and bringing the truth to the public. Journalism is not a crime, and arrested journalists must be released all over the world. Thank you.